Story: The Man at Her Door. I lived in a small college town, the kind where everything important was within walking distance: the bar, the grocery store, and the downtown strip. My apartment complex wasn't much, but it was close to everything and gave me a great view from the balcony. One weekday night, well past 2:30 in the morning, I stepped outside to get some air. The streets were empty, as expected, but something felt off. There was a girl standing at her door, one of my neighbors. A few apartments down, and a man was talking to her. At first, I figured they knew each other, but the more I watched, the stranger it seemed. They talked for over 10 minutes. She stood in the doorway, not fully outside, while he stood just a little too close. I couldn't hear their conversation, but her body language was stiff. She crossed her arms, shifted her weight nervously, and kept glancing around like she wanted an excuse to leave. Later, she told me she had no idea who the guy was. He'd just shown up and started talking like they were old friends. She felt too awkward to end it, even though her instincts were telling her to. He kept doing the creepiest things. At least 3 times, he reached up and ran his hand through her hair. Not playful, slow, deliberate. She would gently pull away, but he kept inching closer to the door with every passing minute. I watched from the balcony, alarm bells blaring in my head. Something wasn't right, so I started rustling my textbooks, loudly slamming them down and flipping pages just to make noise. I wanted to break the tension, to let him know someone was watching. Eventually, she made an excuse and closed the door on him. The man stood there for a few more seconds, then slowly walked away. I still don't know what his intentions were, but I'm glad I stepped outside when I did. Story: The Craigslist Seller. It started off as something simple. I wanted to buy a ping pong table for my roommate and me. Nothing fancy, just something cheap and functional for our garage. I searched Craigslist, and after scrolling through a few sketchy listings, I found one that seemed normal. A guy had posted an ad with a photo of a decent-looking table and a short description. In good condition, bring a truck. First come, first serve. I messaged him. He replied quickly, polite, straightforward, said I could come pick it up that same night. We finalized the time for later in the evening around 9:30 p.m. I had to remove the back seats from my truck to fit the thing, which wasn't a big deal. Honestly, I was just excited to surprise my roommate. He had no idea I was doing this. That night, I pulled up in front of the seller's house. It was in a quiet neighborhood just outside of town. Not much lighting, and the houses were spread out. I texted him, "I'm here." The porch light flicked on a moment later. The door creaked open, so I hopped out of the truck and did a quick speed walk up to the entrance. The man stood in the doorway. He looked like he was in his late 30s or early 40s average height, clean-shaven, wearing a sweatshirt and jeans. Nothing outwardly alarming. He smiled, extended a hand, and said, "Come on in. The table's in the basement." I shook his hand and stepped inside. His house was clean but strange. Quiet. Unnaturally so. No music, no TV. The lighting was dim, and there was an odd sterile smell like bleach and carpet cleaner mixed together. We walked down a narrow flight of stairs into the basement. It was finished with tile floors and wood paneling on the walls. In the center of the room was the ping pong table, folded upright, just like in the photo. "Looks great," I said. "Thanks," he replied. "Just need to find the paddles. They were in a drawer somewhere." Then he wandered off toward a small door at the back of the room. I stood there waiting. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Still no sign of him. I looked around. There were framed photos scattered around the room on shelves, desks, even the floor. But every single one was of him. Not him with family or friends, just him. In different places, doing different things, but always alone. One photo showed him at a park with a dog. That was the only hint of anyone else in his life. The longer I waited, the more uncomfortable I became. The silence was starting to feel suffocating. The air felt heavier, colder. Curiosity got the better of me. I started snooping just a little. There was a cabinet near the back wall with several drawers. One of them was slightly ajar, so I opened it the rest of the way. Inside were items I didn't expect. Labeled DVD DVDs, a notebook filled with what looked like coded writing, and a few small digital cameras. I didn't understand what I was looking at, but my gut told me it was wrong. I reached for my phone to take pictures and send them to my friends. Maybe someone could tell me if I was overreacting. But there was no signal. Nothing. My phone was useless down there. That's when I knew. It was time to leave. I walked quickly, but not too quickly, to the stairs. My hand hit the doorknob. It didn't move. The door was locked. I jiggled it, pulled harder. Nothing. Then I heard a voice from the other side. Well, raspy. Sorry about that, he said. Door must have locked by accident. He didn't open it. Didn't even try. That's when panic set in. I didn't respond. I just backed away. Heart pounding, adrenaline flooding my system. Was this some kind of mistake? Was I being paranoid? Or was this something else, something much worse? I took one last look at the basement, at the drawer, the photos, the silent walls, and decided I couldn't wait to find out. I found a small window at the far end of the room. It was barely large enough, but I managed to break the latch and push it open. I climbed out, scratched and bruised but free, and ran straight to my truck. My hands were shaking as I started the engine. I didn't go home. I drove straight to the nearest police station. Inside, I explained everything, showed them the photos I managed to take, gave them the address, described the house and the man inside. At first, the officer listening to me looked skeptical. But when I showed him the pictures and the notes I'd quickly typed on my phone after escaping, his expression changed. He made a call. That was enough to open a formal investigation. A few days later, I got a call from the department. I'll never forget what the detective said. The man you reported, he was running a child pornography operation. Deep web stuff, hidden servers. He'd been trading and storing materials from that house for years. I went cold. Apparently, the drawer I opened contained files and footage that linked him to multiple online identities. The cameras weren't just for show. They were active. Why he invited me there that night, why he locked the door, I'll never know. Maybe he panicked. Maybe I interrupted something. Or maybe I was going to become part of whatever footage he was planning to create. All I know is I was lucky, and I'll never answer another Craigslist ad again. Story, Cody and Agnes. It happened in the early 2000s during a quiet evening shift. Cody, a little boy I was babysitting, was on the living room floor playing with his toys. They were scattered everywhere: trucks, plastic action figures, board game pieces. He was completely immersed in his own little world. But what caught my attention was the way he kept talking to someone he called Agnes. At first, I thought he was just using his imagination the way kids do. He'd laugh, turn his head slightly as if someone was sitting across from him, and say things like, "Your turn, Agnes," or "You can have the red car." I smiled and kept an eye on him from the kitchen. That is, until one of his toys, a cube-shaped toy with a crank activated all on its own. That toy only worked when you pulled the crank down, and it would trigger a little simulated racing game on the screen. But Cody was nowhere near it. I paused, staring at the toy as it buzzed and flashed, then quickly turned it off, brushing it off as a glitch. That's when I heard the sound. From the end of the hallway, one of the bedroom doors began to creak open slowly, unnaturally slowly. Assuming Cody was just trying to play a prank on me, I turned off the bathroom light and walked toward the hallway, ready to catch him in the act. But when I stepped into the room, I stopped cold. Cody wasn't at the door. He was sitting silently on the bed in the far corner of the room, staring at me. Who just pushed open the door? I asked, already dreading the answer. Cody looked at me and said, in the calmest voice imaginable, "Agnes." I didn't ask anything else. I didn't wait to hear more. I scooped him off the bed and carried him back into the living room, trying to stay calm. We stayed there, lights on, cartoons playing until his parents came home. To this day, I have no idea who or what Agnes was, but Cody wasn't pretending, and that door didn't open itself. Story, a knock too late. It happened just last year around 9 p.m. A knock at the front door startled me not because it was loud, but because it was so late. We live in a rural area where unannounced visits are rare, and late-night ones are practically unheard of. I called for my mom, and she went to check. From the hallway, I could hear a man's voice, polite, rehearsed. He said he was opening a business and asked whether she liked American-made products. Then, without waiting for a response, he handed her a large white Clorox container as a sample. He smiled and said, "Let me grab something else real quick," and walked back toward a minivan parked at the edge of our driveway. Something felt wrong. As he slid the van door open to get what he called a vacuum cleaner, my mom's expression changed. She saw 5 other men inside the vehicle, all just sitting there, silently watching. They didn't get out. They didn't move. My mom kept her cool. Calmly, she turned toward me and said, "Go get my phone." We didn't have a landline, and in my panic, I couldn't find her cell. Heart pounding, I grabbed a kitchen knife and tucked myself around the corner of the hallway just in case. Meanwhile, my mom stepped back outside. With a sharp gaze, she threw the Clorox container off the porch and shouted, "Get the hell off my property. I'm calling the cops." That was all it took. The man turned, slammed the van door shut, and the vehicle peeled out of our driveway into the night. We never saw them again. To this day, we don't know who they were or what their intentions were. But out here, in a place where houses sit far apart and police are miles away, we both knew exactly what could have happened and how narrowly we avoided it. Story: don't open the door. It was one of those nights where the wind howled and the rain came down in sheets a dangerously stormy night. Everyone in my family was off doing their own thing. I was in my room watching TV. My parents were in the living room watching a comedy show, and my sister was upstairs playing video games. I usually found storms relaxing. Something about being safe inside while chaos raged outside made me feel calm. But that calm didn't last. Suddenly, there was a loud bang on my window so hard, I jumped out of bed. I rushed over and looked out. A man was standing outside, rain pouring over him, face blurred by water streaking down the glass. He started pounding on the window with both fists. It looked like he was screaming. I hesitated, then cracked the window open. That's when I heard him. "Let me in. I'm hurt." His voice was panicked and desperate. The rain was deafening, so I yelled back, "Go around to the front." Then I slammed the window shut and ran to the living room to tell my dad. "There's a guy outside," I said. "He's yelling for help." Right on cue, loud knocking began at our front door, followed by more shouting. My dad was about to open the door when I stopped him. "Wait," I said. "I'm not sure it's safe." Just then, the phone rang. Our TV showed the caller ID our next-door neighbor. Dad answered, listened, then said, "No thing way." He hung up and told us, "Stay away from the door." Then he peeked out through the curtain. What he saw made him step back. "There's a guy crouched on the porch," he said quietly. "He's holding something sharp, looks like an axe." He shouted through the door, "Get out of here. The police are on the way." Then he dialed 911. The man outside banged on the door a few more times, then suddenly went silent. By the time the cops arrived, he was gone. Later that night, Dad told me the neighbor had seen the same man in their backyard. Rummaging through their shed, he left with a chopping axe in his hand. The police eventually found him wandering the streets. I still think about that night sometimes, how close danger got to our front door, and how, just maybe, hesitation saved us.